Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bends. I'm your host, Donny Keys, and we are joined by the lovely Becki Sams. So before I get you introduced, Becki, I'm just going to talk about what we're going to be doing today. And so we're talking about women's health. And I bet you're thinking, what's that bearded buffoon talking about women's health for? But I do, if you're listening now, men, keep tuned, because I think it's very important we understand our partners' cycles and stuff like that. So, but ultimately, we're here to introduce Becki because she's going to be doing some classes with North and Soul TV. You are getting another teacher to the platform, if you remember. It's all been aligned, really. Polly's currently reading a book called Period Power. We met recently, Becki. You said you do this. We thought it was a bit too funny not to run with. And I'm sure our members will get tons and tons of value from you. So do you want to introduce yourself, Becki?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a really nice introduction anyway. So yeah, I'm Becki. I'm a yoga teacher and I'm a women's health specialist. So it's basically everything from the menstrual cycle and everything that can go right with the menstrual cycle, as well as everything that can go wrong, including, perimenopause, that whole phase leading up to menopause, post-menopause, pregnancy, postnatal, anything to do with the womb, anything to do with vaginas, periods, blood, all the juiciness, sexuality as well, anything that is associated with the reproductive organs. I'm your gal. And I just want to sort of tap into what you just said as well about men being involved in that, because my partner has learned through me all of this stuff, and it's so helpful for your relationships, but not just like romantic, but understanding women, you know, your mothers, sisters, daughters, and just getting to know what does it actually mean, like what do we have to go through in our lives and how we can be supported. It's super important.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it does help with relationships. You know, as the more you understand anyone, whether it is male or female energies and people, the more you'll have a better relationship with, of course. We're bringing you on. Just tell us, I'd say, how did you get into all this? But you are a female. It came to you, I guess.
It did in a way, but it was funny because now when I look at it, it was a bit of the universe throwing it in my face in some ways, because I mean, like most people and most women, so there's a theory in terms of how men and women tend to react to shame when you're younger. So men tend to take that energy outwards, so they'll act out maybe aggression, because it's more culturally accepted for men to act out in that way. You know, this is a massive generalization, but in terms of women, we tend to take that energy inwards. So we start to blame, self-criticize. What's wrong with me? Why am I not enough? And what that often leads to, and what it led to for me, was, you know, extreme anxiety and panic, an eating disorder, you know, just real self-hatred, actually. And so that kind of triggered me on a bit of a destructive journey, and then which turned into a healing journey of, you know, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and just looking at, you know, how can I optimize my health? How can I be the best person, you know, that I want to feel just good about myself, and really feel alive. And what it led to eventually was I was on holiday randomly. We met with somebody who was a friend of my partner's, who he traveled with like 20 years ago. And we were sitting at a table, and she was like talking about her period, and I was like, who is this weirdo who's like talking about her period over lunch? I was like, oh, as most women might do before you start to get into this work. I was like, it's so gross. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it. It's just a inconvenience that happens every month. And she was like talking about it in a really kind of empowered way and very straightforward. And I was like, I'm a bit intimidated by her, but I also like the way that she's talking.
Yeah, the intrigueness by the intimidation, thinking, well, why can she talk about it but not me? And the stigma that's actually only ever created in either social, societal norms, or in your own head, in your own psyche. You know, we literally just before we were talking about swear words, and that's another thing. It's like, how can people get offended by one word and use another swear word in thing? And I do think these come with going way back into you're told that you should this, or somewhere. It's sometimes not even your own stuff, is it, that you carry with you?
No, definitely. in terms of the period as well, is more of a cultural thing, I think, in women's bodies and women's sexuality and all that. But what she did was she started talking about the period, but then she started talking about how, oh, your hormones change and your behavior changes and like the way that you are changes throughout the month. And I was like, oh, now this is getting interesting. And she recommended the book Wild Power. And I read that book and it was like, something exploded and my body was just like, yes. And it's just been an obsession basically ever since. And I just continued on with that and just followed what feels good. And it's just fascinating. I find it fascinating. So yeah, that was how I got into it.
It really is fascinating. And just from bits that Paul's picked up on and taught to me around, and I don't take this in any criticism, but I think it's so well how you girls hold this together, because the stuff that I've learned through this, it's actually a wonder how you're not crazy when you do go crazy.
It's true. It's really true. And I think that's something to acknowledge, because one of my teachers says that a lot of this stuff that goes quote unquote wrong with the menstrual cycle or anything to do with women's health, like, you know, PCOS, polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, just chronic fatigue, things like that might be associated, is actually just like tired woman syndrome as well. Is something that she calls it, is this all of this cultural conditioning and all of this stuff and all this energy that we take into ourselves kind of manifests in us rejecting the womb, rejecting our own bodies almost, and yeah, just being so out of touch with our own cycles and trying to live like men, which we are equal for sure, but we're different. We are different, and we do need different things, and we need different yoga practices. And that was one of the things that was a light bulb for me, because yoga is a system and it's an amazing system, and I love it, and you know, it's something that changed my life. But it's a system designed by men for male bodies, doesn't take into consideration that women are different, you know, and we are
100%.
different.
Yeah, and I think everything has to evolve over time. I've had this talk a lot with Polly about like Kundalini yoga, especially being taught in certain careers and etc. And just the evolution somehow. I think you've got to evolve stuff anyway, and it can't be stuck to black and white, or we'd all be still doing, I don't know, we'd be hunting down animals with sticks, you know. Evolution has to take place, and I think you're totally correct. You have to cater for both the male and female energies, the male and female bodies. We're totally different people, but we're the same in so many ways, and we're totally different in others.
Yeah, we are. And I think it's just really important to acknowledge that. And then for us as women, and for me especially, and I see it as a little bit of my responsibility as a woman who now knows about this, to share it with every single woman I can. I literally just put on my Instagram stories today, I was teaching corporate lunchtime yoga, and I'm like slipping in a little bit about the cycle, talking a little bit about perimenopause. I'm like, you know, this is not really like what it's supposed to be about, but I'm like, you should know about this. And so I'm just gonna, you know, casually slip it in. If you're interested, you might pick it up. And for us to get to know our own bodies, because really actually in yoga and any other kind of practice, it's all about listening to yourself. So I am not someone who would proclaim to be like a guru, right? Regardless of any study that I've done or anything that I teach, it's like, I am not the expert. You are the expert on you. You will always be the expert on you, man or woman. You know what's best for you. And it's just about guiding you to listen to your own intuition and your own inner wisdom.
Polly's favorite quote, I think it's one of hers: "Be your own guru. There's no guru like yourself." And it's so true, you know. Who is some man in a mountain meditating for however years, telling you how to live in the real societal norms? Okay, you've ascended to X, Y, and Z, but that doesn't roll when you've got a kid tugging on your trousers with peanut butter all its face, and you know these things happen, and it's how you can take yoga into daily life, and that's what we teach it, and and I'm sure you teach it as well. This is what we try. Just be your authentic self, and you can't be that yogi in the mountain. It isn't how it works around in the Western society, at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, so you're coming into Northern Soul. Just tell everyone what you'll be doing, like what you want to bring to the table, what you're wanting to get for our students and our members to gain from it, and yeah, what are you going to be delivering?
So basically womb focused yoga, everything that is to do with the womb. So anyone who has a womb or doesn't have a womb anymore for whatever reason, men included, can also do this, by the way. They also like the movement, so they're welcome to join in if they want to. But it's focused around the sacral chakra, around the chakra as well that's between the sacral chakra and the solar plexus, which is called yoni sthana, which is in Sanskrit translates to the place of the womb. And that's all about freeing up that energy, because we store so much emotional energy there, and starting to bring some love and nourishment and all juicy goodness to the womb. And it's a lot of fluid, intuitive, feminine movement. It's a very different kind of yoga, but it's also suitable for every woman. So whether you're pregnant, whether you're postnatal as well, but although there's separate things that you need to consider there, obviously always consult your doctor, a little bit of a disclaimer. And yeah, if you're in perimenopause, postmenopause, even if you're a young girl, if you have, maybe you have students in there who are, they have kids who want to practice with them and things like that. It's just about tuning into the body and associating with the body in a different way. So rather than in yoga, sometimes what can happen is like pushing yourself so hard, like I want to get into a certain posture, it needs to look a certain way. We're not in the body and focusing on how it feels. And my approach is much more like, let's close your eyes. Like, don't look around at everybody. I know you're online, so you're kind of at home anyway in your own space, which is great. Just tuning in with what do I actually want to do? You can come to my class, take that hour for yourself and lie down for a fucking hour. I really don't care. You can just do whatever you need to do. If that's what you need, I will start there with you. We will lie down and then we'll start to build up. And for the other people who are joining in, if you feel like they've got more energy, we'll do it that way. And every single practice is focused around the cyclical energy as well. So everything that I do, it starts with, we're in our winter phase of the cycle. And whether that's you're actually in your winter, which is when you're bleeding, like when you have your period, when you're menstruating, for those of you who are not familiar with the seasons. But also if you just feel like I just need to rest, you not have a cycle, but you just like, I just need to rest. And then moving through those seasons, which are kind of reflected in our body through our hormones as they dip up and down. So you can choose what feels right for you. And it's always about choosing what feels right for you. And it's a bit of a nourishing fusion between hatha yoga, some tantra yoga as well, and bringing in just some connection to the divine feminine, so the goddess within, I like to call it. So
yeah, so let's dig deeper into the actual period. You've just touched upon the seasons there, which is something I've just learned about as well recently. And yeah, so why is it important for a woman to embrace the period and how she can turn the period into a power? I'm guessing this is really what we're going to be focusing on with you. So why is that important? It sounds like a stupid question, but so many people don't know this.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stupid question at all. There's no stupid questions. And actually, it's just, I could go on about this for years and years and years, but the reason is because it's so freaking empowering. If you're a woman and you're cycling, you've signed up for this, you're already on it. Like, no matter what, you're going to experience this. You're going to experience hormonal shifts. You're going to be living in this body, for that period of time. And so it's so empowering to, first of all, understand what's happening. And second of all, to reorganize your life. And this is a bit of a process, but to reorganize your life, your yoga practice, what you eat, how you take care of yourself according to what your body is actually telling you. So we have, as humans, we have 3 different rhythms as women. For men, they have 2 of those as well. So we have the circadian rhythm, which is like the sleep-wake cycle. Most people have heard of that, your 24-hour cycle. We have the ultradian rhythm, which is basically less than 24 hours. So it's like your activity rest kind of cycle. And then we have an infradian rhythm as women, which is longer than 24 hours. So for us, it's more or less 28 days, but not always that long, and not always that short. It could be a little bit longer. And getting to know that part of it, like, it's as if not paying attention to your period is like, I'm just going to keep like plowing through and not sleep for 3 days. You're like not paying attention to your circadian rhythm. Like, you would feel crazy. Like, if you didn't rest and take sleep and do those things that you need to do and look after yourself, you imagine
I did plenty of free nights up before in my day. Don't worry about that.
But you know what?
Yeah, no,
I
totally get you. Yeah, that ignoring a rhythm of your body, it's only going to come out negative, right?
Yeah, it's really, we have the signals. Like, and just as a note here for those women who are maybe taking hormonal contraception or on the pill, you might not experience this. And actually, when you're on the pill, you don't have, so even though you might have a bleed, it's not actually, because you're not ovulating, it's not a period. So it's actually like a false bleed. So you might not experience this in the same way, but for those women and for women who are postmenopausal, you can cycle with the moon. So the moon is also reflected in the same way that it's reflected through our hormones. And we can talk about that a little bit. But yeah, if you ignore those signals that your body is giving you, which you might not get if you're on the pill, as I said, but just it's telling you to rest, like it's telling you to chill out, then you're just going to override that signal. And you're going to feel it's like a cumulative effect, you know? If you've gone 10 years of your life not paying attention to your period or your cycle, trying to just push through, you'll get to a point and you'll just be like, body's giving up, like something happens with the womb. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it happens a lot. So, yeah.
Autopilot only works for so long, right? You need to, yeah, I totally agree on that. Yeah, going back to the point, like, so Polly, my partner, who everyone knows, and if you don't, she's a founder of North and Soul TV. She once was writing like a journal. She like almost self-blogged her period and her cycle, and she found out straight away after she had a period, she was the most creative, really, and I find it so interesting, and I really do. I find it so interesting, and I think men should make it the duty to find out more on these things, because the different types of creativity, emotion, and stuff flow through the cycles, and surely that's so empowering, knowing instead of trying to create something just before your period, to actually use this time with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in terms of the cycles, so like you just mentioned about that, how it works. So when you're starting in winter, like when you're bleeding, when you're on your period, that's the time. If you can rest, like all your hormones are at the lowest level, if you can rest during that time, like people think, oh, it's, just the time for cramping and, just feeling crap. But actually it can be a time for accessing altered states of consciousness, almost like you're taking, like if you take psychedelics, or if you've ever taken psychedelics, and that feeling of like entering a different, that's possible.
Yeah, you lucky girls. I've got to pay solid good money for that experience.
But it's this naturally inbuilt into the body. You have this sense of, and it takes a while sometimes. I don't want to set expectations for what it should be like, because everybody is different. But if you can rest and really rest, and I mean literally just be there, relaxed, you've made food for yourself already, you don't need to be doing that much. And again, this is a privilege, because not many people can do this if you have to work, things like that. Taking 1% of that rest that you could take, it can be really blissful. You can have really blissful experiences, and it's a lot of oxytocin that can be starting to flow through the body. It gives you that like, oh, I'm connected to the universe and everything's divine. And like I said, like sometimes what you get when you've taken psychedelics. So that can be incredible. And it's also a time for like deep truth, tapping into the truth of who you really are. Understanding.
Sorry, just to go back, this is when you're actually on, is
yes.
it? Yes.
Yeah, so day 1 of the cycle is like the first day that you start bleeding. So taking that time then to rest, first of all, it will help the cramps. And no matter what people say, if you have anything longer than 20 minutes of cramping, you likely have a hormonal imbalance. 20 minutes is about normal. If you have anything more than that, it's common, but it's not normal. It's not healthy, and it should be 20 minutes. Yeah.
You can counterbalance these. It's not.
Yeah.
And what are the things that help?
Well, tuning into the cycle is one of them, and tuning into and giving yourself what you actually need. Like that's one of the biggest ways. Like having this consciousness around how your body actually works is a major way of like kind of reconciling that relationship that you have with your period. Resting, like my number one thing. Lay down. Give yourself some time and some space. Yoga nidra can be really helpful. Those kinds of like deep meditations where you can just let yourself be and breathe.
Total generalization here, but I find women can't rest a lot of the times, and I've got a lot of them in my life, and I know some of you ladies will be thinking that's because we're bloody tidying up after you all the time. But no, I do actually think there's a lot of there's something there that I think is more challenging for women to just be still and rest than say a lazy old man. But maybe I don't know, maybe it is a generalization, but the ones that I know in my life do find that the biggest struggle is rest.
Yeah, and part of that, I mean, it's no coincidence then, though, is it, that we have all of these issues with our hormones and that we have all these issues like feeling overwhelmed and burnt out and stressed, like because it is hard. And it is a generalization for me as well, because I know for myself it's also hard to rest. But then I see like my partner, for example, he can just be like, he's done for work and he's just like, chilling out. And yeah, he's like completely disconnected and it's easy for him. And I'm jealous of that in some ways. But I think maybe part of that is a cultural thing of women feeling validated and getting their value from being of service to others. And that's encouraged in the culture of women being the ones who are there for other people, putting everybody's needs ahead of their own. So that maybe could be a reflection of that. But yeah, and again, like I said, it is a privilege to be able to rest. If you have a full-time job and you're on your period, like you can't obviously just lay down and as much as you might want to, like,
or if you've got a business,
exactly,
resting's hard. I aren't rested much for a while.
No.
But yeah.
No, and there sometimes does come a phase where you can start to work as much as you can around your cycle. So starting to understand, okay, let's, as a very brief whistle-stop tour around the cycle, so that's the time to rest and to relax. When we start to feel the energy rising, so we've stopped bleeding, we move into the follicular phase of the cycle, which is like the spring. It's like we're coming into ourselves, and any downloads or insights or intuition we might have had during our period, we can then start bringing it into fruition through the spring phase. Our hormones are rising. We're starting to feel a little bit more like ourselves again. It's a bit more of a masculine energy, and this is what's rewarded in the culture as well, is this sense of women being like, we can do everything and we can be, I'm in summer at the minute, I'm freaking superwoman, I'm doing like 10 million things left, right and center. I'm like multitasking all over the place, and that's what I want to be like all the time. And we kind of expect ourselves to be like that all the time as well. But it's not realistic because, it doesn't last. I know mine's going to, about 3 more days and I'm going to be like,
crash.
Everybody leave me alone. I don't want to do anything. So then we start to come into the summer phase. So the spring phase is really like the kind of planning and organizing, taking a little bit of risk, trying out new things, being a little bit more creative, like you said about Polly. Then summer is our ovulation. So it's when our hormones are at their peak. It's like we are superwoman. We can do everything. We can take care of kids. We can cook everything that we need to cook. We can do all the work. We can, we have a lot of energy. And again, it's very that kind of masculine energy that's still there. And then we start to come into autumn, and that's a little bit of we're like, something's going on here. I don't feel the same. Our hormones are starting to decrease a little. And that's when we start to just go a little bit more inwards. It's more of the feminine energy, which, as a note, men and women all have masculine and feminine energies. Men tend to have them throughout the day in a 24-hour cycle rather than 28 days. And we can talk about that a little bit if you want to. But yeah, so for women, we have that. And this is where we have premenstrual tension, or PMS, PMT, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, there's no bullshit. It's like, there's no filter. There's the truth speaker, the warrior of truth is free. And it's like anything that is not aligned in your life, it will show during that time, and you will just be brutal. And it's really hard actually to be around people who are like that, but it's also necessary. We need that phase.
PMT stands for Polly's mental today, by the way, for me.
Well, one of the teachers who I really admire called it, Lisa Vitti, called it prioritizing myself, PMS, prioritizing myself. And it's like, that's the time we go inwards, that energy comes. So instead of serving and looking after others, which feels really easy in spring and summer, it's like, okay, now it's time to come back to me come back home. Yeah. And so that's the time, again, to honor that where you can and if you can. And then we come back to winter and we bleed, and then we have the whole cycle again. And it's reflected of like the daily cycle. Again, you wake up in the morning, it's like spring, daytime, like lunchtime, summer, great, get all your meetings done, whatever you need to do, coming back down a bit of a dip in the afternoon, and then it's time to rest in the evening.
Is this a run-of-the-mill cycle, or can different women experience different seasons for longer? Or
Yeah, for sure. So this is like, there's no set. So we kind of give an idea of how many days it might last for each phase of the cycle, but there's no set, because every woman is like, it could be, like I said, 23 days, could be 25, could be 36, like, and it can be different every month. So it's definitely not always reflected, and some seasons last a lot longer. So my autumn and winter, for example, is like almost the whole thing. I have like a little bit of spring, a little bit of summer, and then it's like I'm just like autumn the whole time.
Get wrapped up.
Yeah, and that's just, I've just come to make peace with that a little bit. Like, that's just how my body is. That's how my cycle is. And I'm actually more comfortable in my feminine energy because I experienced anxiety as like, that was my baseline. And I do still struggle with anxiety sometimes, as anyone who has struggled with it before will know, it does crop up again from time to time. And that is one of the challenges of spring and summer as a woman, with all of that surge in hormones. It can also be like stressful. It can feel not comfortable. It can provoke a little bit of anxiety actually as well.
Yeah, no, and anxiety is normal. It's like, it's part of being a human. I'd be more worried if I never got it, because I just feel like it'd be you're a robot already, you know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to having you. And so, let's just say, what are our students going to get from you? Let's talk about why come to your class and learn about this stuff. What can they empower be?
Well, I hope, like, basically what I'm going to come and offer is all building deep self-love. I think actually is what it comes down to, is self-love and self-respect, and really looking after yourself. Self-care. I call all of my classes like the ultimate self-care experience. Like, it's all about aligning mind, body, and spirit, but tuning into your own inner wisdom, your own inner teacher. And hopefully as well, like, my classes, because they are more feminine in terms of the movements, more fluid, more flowy, and very deeply relaxing as well, that it's all about taking that rest that you need. Like, there's plenty of people out there who teach really dynamic styles of yoga and who I really admire and who I often practice with. But my personal approach to yoga is like, this is where we come to, first of all, be who you really are. You're welcome however you are. Like I said, you can lay down and I don't care for an hour, you know, like that's fine. But it's also just about, okay, this is my time for me, and coming into contact with this rest and nourishment that my body actually needs right now. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's of
course, it really does. And I think having that, we often put others in front of ourselves, and like, really, the saying's true. If you haven't got how can you drink out of an empty cup, or how can someone else drink out of that empty cup? And it's really important that we do not only have our cup filled, but give to others as well, you know. And I'm really looking forward to having you on board.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to coming and sharing it. I mean, I think that there's a real call for this type of work for women, so that they have a yoga experience that is designed for their body, that is designed for the kind of movement that a feminine body wants to feel. Like, I keep doing this, like I'm like circling around, and there's a lot of circling, a lot of spiraling, a lot of like primal, I guess. I don't know, that seems a bit like, oh.
Yeah, no, it's good. And like, I think it's really like, I know of like a lot of women, it comes round as a surprise, and I'm like, oh, my period again. Like, they're not, but it's like, oh, you forget almost. I know this is what I hear anyway. I feel awkward almost talking about periods and stuff, but I think it'll be great to teach people how to accept it, how to work with it, how to know when you're going to be on fire, when you need to rest. I think this is really important, not only for women, but for men to understand, and just to, you know, understand that's how I am as a person. That's how I'm going to be working this week. And that's how you'll have to accept it. And yeah, I really think it's a great subject to have on board, and it's something that women need to know more of. It's something that men need to know more about, and I think it's a it's going to fit like a glove.
Let's hope so.
No, I know. So we've already got some interest in it. So last but not least, any books you'd recommend on all this stuff?
Oh my God. How long have you got? First book I recommend is the one that I read, which was Wild Power. That's, for me, depending on the view that you take, like that is like the psycho-spiritual aspect. So if anyone who's watching this is like interested in that element of, like you just said, about your business, like how you might run your business, how you might create a project, you know, like something that you need to bring out into the world, like that is the one, because it's really all about the psychological aspect of it and how our mind is impacted by the cycle. In terms of understanding the body, Christiane Northrup's Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, hands down, you need that. Every woman should read that, for sure. There's a lot of other books on the actual cycle itself as well. So like Woman Code, for example, and In the Flow, both by Alyssa Vitti, talk about the foods and like how you can change what you eat according to the cycle and things like that. So if that's more of interest in how to balance the hormones themselves, then that would be a great way to go as well. There's books like Period Power. I think it's Maisie Hill who wrote that one. I need a full.
Don't worry, I've caught you off guard and you've excelled if someone asks me for book recommendations anyway.
I think that every author has something different to offer. So there's a lot of books on that. So it really just depends on what aspect of the cycle you feel like you need to balance within yourself.
Yeah, the right book's the one that's right for you as well, isn't it? It's whether you get hooked on it or not. But yeah, they're great recommendations. When are we starting? We are starting in January for our members who are looking forward to it. Let's get Christmas out of the way. Enjoy all your Christmas. And we'll be starting in January. We'll be doing these once a week for now, I think. And then, if the crowd goes wild, we'll be getting more in.
Yay!
Well, thank you. That's another episode of Beyond the Bends. I'm Donny Keys, and until next time, enjoy your life and enjoy yourselves.